All right, fantastic. So now you have had a week of running the warp gates on receiving love, opening up a lot of freedom around that, which is fantastic. We're doing the rest and review to kind of really go deeper and also accelerate the process by building that connection with our unconscious mind and really, saying that, hey, we're aware, we understand what you're doing, we're on board, here's where we need to go slower, here's where we need to go faster. Instead of your unconscious just doing it, because it's gonna do it to protect you, but it's where you kind of build that communication and really opens you up to this magic. I mean, there's so much magic ready for you. So receiving love, how awesome is that? We did give love the week before. Now we're doing receive love. We got that give and take, that freedom around there. And so let's go back. Let's kind of run the movie again, see what happened on day one when we did safe to receive love, mom and dad. How did that go? How was it towards mom? How was it towards dad? We had the safe to receive love, safe not to receive love. What was the experience? And then also we're looking at 4 to 12 hours after that. Like, what was your experience after that? Because we let the unconscious, we kicked it off and then let the unconscious do its thing. But what came up that? Now we look back, what came up in those 4 to 12 hours? Did you end up slowing it down? Being like, whoa, it got really intense that day. I slowed it down a bit, right? Or was there big pivots in your life of like, you know what? I completely went in a new direction. And it doesn't have to be specifically about receiving love, because like receiving love and giving love to yourself, giving it and receiving it can show up in a whole many different ways, right? And you just freed up a lot of rules around what's safe to receive love. And you freed up so much just doing mom and dad, big time, right? So what happened that day? What started to kick in place? Now looking back, maybe it happened, but you didn't see it. You had a certain conversation and you thought it was just, whatever. But now looking back, you're like, oh my gosh, that's a game changer conversation. All right, so we're looking back. Then on day 2, and if you need to pause the video, we worked on our grandparents on our mother's side. So receiving love, right? All those energetic chains to the grandparents on our mother's side. How did that go? What was that experience in the moment, like when you did it? What were some of the like, wow, I felt the energy move this way, I felt it move that way. But then also the 4 to 12 hours after. So we really started, driving that deep, that this energy work is continuing after you kick it off. Like the warp gate is just kicking it off. Then your unconscious is going to town. So you really see how leveraged this work is and see that next 4 to 12 hours, what was happening? Like, what, and then even did you slow it down? Did you need to slow it down? You're like, whoa, it was really intense. Or if you missed to slow it down, that's not like, oh, I messed up. No. You're seeing now of like, oh yeah, it was a little intense. Oh, I could have switched. And now you're building that deeper connection with your unconscious, right? You're building that thing of like, either your unconscious is giving you, hey, you need to slow it down, or you're noticing that, and then you're building that relationship, which is fantastic because you've got such gifts, which will come through your unconscious to you and give you that like, hey, look, here are your gifts. Now go use them. And you get to choose to go use them. So it is a fantastic process that you're doing. So it's never a failure. But what was, grandparents on their mother's side? How did that day go, right? And then we're going to compare on day 3. So it was your grandparents on your father's side, and clearing, safe to receive love. How was that? How was it different from the other parents? And realize like, your parents have that lineage. They grew up in that, and then, was what got passed on to you. But to see like there was a history there. It wasn't like they had a blank slate and they just showed up and did what they did. It's like, no, there was a whole history that was coming behind them. And similar for you of like, now you're picked up that and you see that it goes further deep, right? And hopefully builds a little bit of like, oh wow, they were playing under some rules. So if there's a little bit of friction, you might be like, oh, have some grace of like what they had to go into, because you changed it, but they changed it further back because they started before you. There's a whole bunch of stuff happening before you showed up. So, and just looking at that, grandparents on the father's side, how was that day? What were the realizations? What was the, 4 to 12 hours after? Like just going over that day of like, okay, yeah, that's what happened. Yeah, oh yeah, day 3 with the grandparents, safe to receive love. Oh, here was another realization. Oh, I forgot about I had that realization. And then we go to siblings, another big one on day 4, right? Siblings or only child. And what was the experience when you did it? Just, okay, receiving love. One in the moment, I kicked off the warp gate. And that's just the beginning, just the feeling of a sense of what was getting cleared, right? What was that sense? And then, now we look at the 4 to 12 hours. And because you've got some days in after that, you're looking back of like, whoa, I've got a new perspective of what happened that day. You know, maybe in the moment I responded in a certain way, but now looking back, you got a different perspective because of all the work that is done just since that day, not that long ago, of like, wow, how much has changed, right? So we're looking for that, looking for this new realizations and also the realizations that we got. So we can like mine that gold of like, hey, I did learn that. You know, I did get that, right? And then also it's building that connection of like, because your unconscious is doing a lot of work and then seeing like, okay, is the conscious mind getting it? Is it, you know, are you coming up to speed and you're getting it? And then like, you know, can we go fast? And by you realizing like when you need to go slower, when you need to switch it up, what realizations, it opens the floodgates for your unconscious to go even faster. And it's already going radically fast. And we're talking about receiving love. How foundational, safe to receive love, unbelievably foundational, but we're tuning that up to where you can be more being a light, you know, get the good stuff. So then day 5, another radically big day. We did the non-biological parents. Who showed up? You know, is it like you got the core non-biological parents, but then more people show up that acted like a parent of like, oh wow, they showed up on receive love, right? And then maybe run give love, you know, be lovable to them as well. You can go back and run that warp gate for them. It's like, oh, let's see if that opens some more stuff up. But who showed up for that, right? And then what was that 4 to 12 hours after? And then the self-referencing energetic chains. Oh, that's where we kind of put it all together and say, we're going to stay stuck. No matter what the other people do, we can still stay stuck. And no, we want to lift that. We don't want those shit. We don't want to be chaining our own self. No, we want our being to be coming through. So we cleared that. That's a big, big day. How was that? How was it to initially kick them off? Of like, whoa, did we slow them up right away? Like, whoa, 1/10 power, I'm getting blown out. Totally fine. That's a smart thing to do. Really smart thing to do. And then what was out through the day? You know, did you have to slow them out through the day? Or like, just, okay, yeah, it got a little intense. I slowed it down. Or like, yeah, it was smooth sailing that day. It's like, man, I just felt like I was so much more free. You know, I was just so much around receiving love. Not to mention, you got your give love, you got your worthy, you got your matter, you got your lovable. All that stuff has come before, and also just safe to be safe. All of that is coming together. And maybe we jump back to like, you know, with the receiving love, we might have to jump back because we, like, you know, some of the things to watch for, like it felt like, oh, I wasn't getting anywhere, is jumping back, safe to be safe. You know, rerunning that clearing. What from the challenge, just rerun, safe to be safe. If it felt like, you know, things are jamming up, like we learned in the first week of like, maybe go back and just do safe to be safe. And all of a sudden, whole floodgates could open up again too. And they're like, oh my gosh, it's moving again. Yeah, we bumped up against the safe, just safe to be safe program. Could have been running, and it was blocking the receiving love. Big stuff, big, big stuff. So that was our day 5. And then day 6, we did the meditation, which is running all of the warp gates from that previous week, all at once, over and over. How was that? You know, how did that compare to the other meditations? Was it like more intense, or was it just like this abundance of joy? Like, how did it roll? Like, what happened for you, right? And we're just noticing it, because there's not a wrongness. It wasn't supposed to do it this way or that way. No, it's supposed to do it the way it does it, and we just notice and then make adjustments, you know, because if it was too intense, we back off a little bit, right? It's not supposed to be traumatic. It's not supposed to be overflowing the funnel. No, we're getting through the funnel, right? So we backed it off a little bit. We ran it at 1/10 power, and then we finished. And we noticed that of like, whoa, got a lot around receiving love, which you probably have noticed. If you look back in life, like, wow, if my receive is like really, really constricted, that's going to constrict how much you can give too. You know, it's just noticing of like, oh, okay, that was in play. Because everybody has a different dynamic. You know, some people might be super restricted on the give, and some people might be super restricted on the receive, or restricted on both, or, you know, all over. It's like, what is you? What is you? What has gotten in the way of your being a light? And this is what we're unwinding, which is awesome. So you have kicked butt. You've gone another week kicking off the warp gates. You've done the review. You're mining that gold and really getting, I mean, you're really starting to wire up that unconscious mind. Really is going to start pulling back these amazing, unique gifts to you by removing all these rules that are just not fun to play by. So you're kicking butt. You're doing fantastic. And until we talk again, have a blessed day or a blessed night.